check. Good morning, traders. This is Perry Wilkie with StartupTrading.com. I'll make this a quick one. It's 9 a.m. Eastern Time on Monday, November 3rd. Looking back at Friday's session, right, not a whole lot of anything. Just kind of back and filled the gap almost in the NASDAQ and did in the ES. But, just really set in the previous day's value for most of the afternoon, anyways. And then as we look at the week right now, and we have, potentially ISM today at 10. That's something to keep in mind. We have Ward's total vehicles today as well. And then Daly is going to speak at noon, a moderated discussion. So, anything can come out of that. And then Cook's going to speak at 2. And then we have he's going to give economic outlook and monetary policy. So audience questions expected. That's probably what it'll be. The wild card on that one. So maybe some late day action out of that. And then we're going to have later this week. We're going to have ADP and non-farm payroll maybe, and in between there we're going to have the Bank of England. The Bank of England really hasn't moved the U.S. markets with anything they've done as of the last year and a half or so. So I would expect that trend to continue. Uh, and so we'll see, what we get out of that. Looking at really where we're at, I mean, really, I would consider us in a range between Thursday's high and Friday's low until proven otherwise. That's the way I see it at this point in time. It's a pretty decent range for us day traders. No ifs, ands, or buts about it, right? And then we just flashed up over the expected high move of the day as I was starting here at 9 o'clock. Nothing newsworthy that I know, but I could have missed a headline. But you can see it was just the last squeeze up, or a squeeze up, right? Getting all those people who were shorting this consolidation, right? Just kind of giving them a little bit of pain for, you know, what for. But if you look at the price action, there's a large gamma at 635 on the Qs. That's pretty much what we just swept over. And there's for the week, right? I don't do it too much this way, but let's get into it for the week, right? Look at 630 on the Qs, right? You got 43,000 puts, almost 44,000 coming into the two today, and 33,000 calls. So that's your large gamma. If you look from to me, so 630 is kind of a little bit of a above or below. Not the end all be all, but I'd rather you know. Um, you can look at it as one of two ways, right? You got a zone basically from 630 to 633, and you got a zone from 630 to 625. And if you look at today, right, 624 to 631 maybe even, and then from 630 you're going to have some overlap there up to 635, but you can see there's room on the upside. But where there's really the strongest agreement between the bulls and the bears is from 629 to 633. If you look at where you've got a fairly significant amount of puts and a fairly significant amount of calls, that overlap is from 629 to 633. So that's your chop zone, if you will. And again, we just swept up to 635, so kind of the high end of this range. If the VIX isn't the VIX needs to, one time frame lower if we're gonna start making any traction above 635. So I'm not even going to beat up the rest of the positioning. And then as we said, this would be short and sweet. And then as we kind of look back at the rest of them, you can see that 1 day expected move. We're right there. It's not the end all be all, but it is something to pay attention to. Remember, we really had value in overlapping between Thursday and Friday for the majority of the volume that traded. So think of this value area for the NQ on the top grid, right? For those of you who are new to the room, right, this on the 8 grid, the top part of it are the daily values calculated from bell to bell of the previous trading day. The bottom, when I release it, on the 8 grid, and I'll go to that 8 grid now, as you can see, the value areas that are in here are just for the overnight session that we're currently in, right? So I'll be, throwing that out. It doesn't look like they're going to be too dissimilar from what they were Friday, a little bit larger in range, but the top's about not too, it's pretty close on the top side. But you can see that 630 as we checked into it, that was support, and now we traded 635. So that's about, 205 point NQ range there. Not a lot going on. Let me look at volume real quick on the other computer. And then as I look at volume, you've got 161,000 ES contracts on the mini and 87,000 on the NQ mini. And that is slightly below average on the volume. So not a lot of, positions that were taken so far in the overnight, which means the dealers kind of let it float up. So we'll see what they want to do from here. But remember, you know, we're likely to trade. If we get back into value, it's definitely a day that we could trade back and forth through value a couple times if the VIX doesn't start. It needs to take. If you look at the overnight action, right, the VIX is the Friday's low is 1857, right? That's what we should have to be below to make traction above Friday's high. We are not there. So I would think that if anything, maybe we'll consolidate a little bit around this 635 to start the day, but we should, uh, there shouldn't be much of a bid above these levels if the VIX can't drop, right? If the VIX starts going up, and it doesn't mean you should just short it just for that, but watch for other structural signs, watch for sequences starting to build, and I don't think that we're gonna, start a big trend down. Remember, Tuesdays and Thursdays are your strongest days. They're about, you know, 40% more likely to be a trending day than Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. It doesn't mean that that's the way it's going to roll or that today is just going to be a do nothing, go nowhere day. But your trends are normally on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I hope this helps. We'll see what Jack's looking at next, and I will talk to you tomorrow.